Okay, we're going to go over our test review. Anything that I have written, you should have written. If you hear anything through the video that I didn't write that you can't remember or that you don't already remember, go on ahead and write that too. Make sure that you put your name at the top of the paper. If you lose it, we can get it back to you. First things first, what is a triple beam balance used for? It is used to measure mass. Often we forget and we think it's measuring weight, which is what a normal balance is for. But because this is triple beam, we're focusing on mass. If you remember, if you remember when we talked about canyons, it is formed by water erosion, water eroding. One example that we often think about would be the Grand Canyon. The sun and the water cycle. The sun is going to heat up the water through evaporation. The sun is going to heat up the water, causing evaporation. Later on in this review, you're going to have to draw the water cycle, and that's going to be a step you don't want to miss. We're going to look at characteristics of the sun, moon, and earth and some of the differences. One of the main differences for earth is that it's going to sustain life, or it can support life. Also, it is the only planet that has liquid water. One thing I want to remind you of is that the Earth does not make its own light. We only reflect light from the sun. So reflects light from sun. For the sun, it is made of gas. Those two gases would be hydrogen and helium. And once again, it's the object in the sky that gives us our light. It's also our closest star. Gives light and heat. A little doodle for fun. For the moon, we need to know that it has no gravity. No atmosphere. Ooh, I'm sorry. One too many humps on that end. And that it has craters. Also, it is 1/6 the gravity of Earth. You all know that the moon doesn't have as much gravity. We're going to go and list some renewable resources. Remember, this is not all the renewable resources. We'd be here for a good while if I was going to list them all. I'm only going to list about 3. 3 you might not have thought of. One would be solar, wind, and we'll say geothermal. If you don't remember these, go back in your notes on, I think it's page 90 in your journal, so you can look at those further. For some non-renewable resources, we have coal, oil, and natural gas. These also have the name, when put together, of fossil fuels. Once again, there are more non-renewable resources. We'd just be here all day if we were going to list them all. On the back side of that same paper, we need to know the difference between weather and climate. Climate is going to last for a long period of time. Usually you see it mentioned as about 30 years. So climate equals long period of time. And weather is going to be short. And that is the main difference you have to know. The planets in order. Some of you told me a sentence that you used to remember it in 3rd grade. I'm going to write that down below. Let's see. My very evil mother just slapped uncle's nose. If you remember, the first letter of each word stands for a planet. So we have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Next, we're going to list the scientific method in order. This stuff is from, gosh, the first 9 weeks, about the 2nd week of school, guys. First, we always start with a question. You know what? Let's do it with some arrows. We have to research our question. I forgot what I was writing for a second. We're going to form a hypothesis. After we form our hypothesis, and I've already forgotten that we're doing arrows, we will do an experiment. After you conduct your experiment, you're going to want to analyze your data. And if your data seems to be correct or gives you a conclusion, you'll write it and share it with others. Usually our conclusions come in the form of like lab questions or tell Miss Gibson what she knows. Let's go down. We're going to talk about sedimentary rocks. Once again, this is a little far back, but guys, everything's going to be on the STAR test. In order to form a sedimentary rock, you start with weathering. When the rock's breaking down into sediments. I forgot my N. After weathering, you have to move those sediments around. That comes with erosion. The sediments are going to drop somewhere in the world. We have deposition. The keyword there being deposit. After deposition, you're going to compact. the sediments together, press them together. And then our last step would be cementation. Remember, these are the steps that our lovely little friend Sandy goes through whenever we're making her. What causes a sand dune to form? Very simple, just wind blowing. It's going to deposit the sand in a different place and eventually will form a hill. Describe the types of soil. For clay, most of you know what clay is when you see it. You know it's red and you know it's sticky. For loam or humus, you know it's decaying plants and animals. It also tends to be dark in color. Humus and loam are going to be the ones that's good for planting. For sand, all we really need to know is that they're small particles. They tend to be sort of tan in color. I did not include gravel in this. It won't be on your test. Silt, you do need to know, is smaller than sand. Looks a lot like it. It also tends to be softer. And our last question on the back of this page is, what is a meteorologist? A meteorologist is just a person who studies the weather. You often see them as weathermen on your local news channel. So a person who studies weather. And for our last page, now there are multiple ways you can conserve renewable and non-renewable resources. We're only going to list about 2 for the sake of time, because we could go on and on. So, one way that we all remember is to turn off the water when we're brushing our teeth. And then one way, which I always found fun, was don't flush the toilet so much. When you flush the toilet, you use about 3 gallons of water every time, which adds up to be a lot throughout the day. And our very last question is drawing the water cycles. So I'm going to figure out where this video is going to cut me off and sort of draw the bottom of the ocean there. Let's draw some pictures to start us off. We have some sort of hill or mountain here. We'll have an ocean. You can put some fish in it if you want to. We will have our cloud up above. And a sun in the corner of our paper. Our cloud needs to have some sort of water coming out of it. You guys know the 4 types of precipitation. I don't care which one you draw. So let's get started. The sun is going to heat up this water in the ocean or in a puddle or in a lake, anywhere, and cause it to evaporate. It'll evaporate out of your water bottle. We'll draw some lines showing us evaporation. Once that water goes into the sky, it will start to form a cloud. When it forms a cloud, that is called condensation. Once you have that cloud is formed and it's so heavy that it starts to drop water from the sky, we have precipitation. And when that water hits a hill, it will start to run off. Let's get it over a little bit so you guys can see. So water will start to sort of trickle down this hill and into our lake, ocean, whatever you want to call this. And it becomes either collection, storage, or accumulation. You may see it in all three ways. So just to be clear, we go from evaporation up to condensation. From condensation, we go to precipitation. From precipitation, we go to runoff. Excuse my weird looking arrows. From runoff, it'll become storage. And then back into our cycle. You also should remember that this is continuous. It never stops. Oops, I almost forgot. Let's label our sun. Okay, once you're done, I want you to write at the bottom of your page, it should be our secret word be today. You know what? I'm looking at Craig's favorite candy up here, so it's going to be Milk Duds. Milk Duds. Once you have that done, come show me, and I'll tell you what to do with it.